What is up, everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Camera Junkie live stream. My name's Luis, also known as Mr. Camera Junkie, where I always remind you to upgrade your skills before your gear. If it's your first time here, welcome. Please be sure to introduce yourself into the chat so you can get the nice Camera Junkie crew welcome. And as tradition goes around here, the first thing that we always do is go ahead and check in the chat to see who are the first members of the Camera Junkie crew to make it here tonight. All right, and let's go ahead and do that. Here we are. Perfect. All right, and let's check the chat. Right off the bat, we have David Hunt in the house. It's been a while, haven't seen you on the live. He's saying hello, hello. We also got Scott Rogers saying hi to the crew. Parker Jennings in the house saying hello, everyone. Mr. Paul Duncan, Mr. Moderator, or the Paul Duncan, Mr. Moderator, saying hey, fam. We also have David saying hello to Paul. We got Gretchen in the house saying hi to myself and to Aiden, saying happy Saturday. All right, everybody's saying what's up to everyone, including myself. What's up, David? All right, and those are the first members of the crew to get in here tonight. Oh, we also have Yolanda sneaking in, saying hello to everyone. Welcome, welcome. All right, today we're gonna get into talking about one of my favorite subjects, right? Cameras. And cameras today. Let me see how the audio is going. Yeah, everything seems to be going good. I'm gonna raise the music for myself so I can get to enjoy that as well. All right, but today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, which is cameras. And I happen to get my hands on a couple of new cameras. One of them I'm still testing out, spoke to some of you about it, but I'm going to hold that one off till next week. And I'd rather talk to you about my hands on experience with one of the two cameras, which is the Nikon ZFC. This guy right here. So let me see. Oh, I don't have an E camera. And I say E camera, which is this one, so that you can get a better view of it. The Nikon ZFC, the new up to date vintage camera. So, why do I say this? Is because this camera happens to be modeled like the vintage cameras of, back in the day. If you look at my shelf right up here, I have quite a few examples of exactly what I'm talking about. That is, which one's that one? Okay, so this is my Yashica, my Zenit, and then this is my Pentax, right? All film cameras. And my most recent acquisition as far as film cameras is my new Mamiya Secor. This guy right here. So as you can see, these vintage style or these vintage cameras, not vintage style, but these vintage cameras themselves have led for Nikon to pretty much copy and paste the look and feel, as you can see. So this is a hefty all metal full construction film camera, and it's got all the knobs and everything that you need for photography when it comes to film. You have your aperture control right here on the lens. We also have the focus control, manual, of course. And then here we have our shutter speed, which this one goes from bulb, which if you're not familiar with that, that's basically you hold it down for long exposures, and as long as you decide to hold it down, it will remain with the shutter open, getting as much light as possible. This is good for low light environments, night photos, and long exposures with ND filters during the day. So you press and hold and you can count. And this is prior to having like pre-designated like time lapse functionality in digital cameras. So the bulb is basically, it holds the shutter open as long as you have your finger pressed. So you have bulb 1 second all the way to 1,000th of a second. So you got 1, 2, 4, 8, 15, 30, 60. 60 is highlighted in red here because that was kind of like the native speed for like the most average shots. But if you wanted something, high speed, so to speak, or something you wanted to get sharp because maybe you had more shakiness in your hands, I would recommend to step up to the 1/25th of a second, which would just get that much bit of a sharper image because you're exposing it for less time. The faster the shutter speed, the sharper or the less blur that you're going to have in the image. And when it comes to photography, that will reduce the shake that you would see in the image. So fast moving cars, or you want to have less shake in your image, go 100 and 1/25th or 1/25th of a second to get a faster shutter speed. So now this guy right here is an old school film camera. And what this Nikon has done for me in just the past couple of days, first hands on, is give me all the feels that I would get from this guy. So obviously the look is pretty much the same. And you know what? Let me go to the overhead. Right? So the look of this camera is pretty much identical. The difference is that it's completely digital and APS-C. So I'm going to go ahead because it did come with a lens. And it came with this kit lens, the 16 to 50. Get that closer to you so you can see. Oh, focus. There we go. 16 to 50, f3.5 to 6.3 kit lens. And it's, as you can see, is very small and compact, but it does extend when you go to use it. But let's go ahead and attach that to this guy, so that we can get the whole look. All right. Lens cap off. And there we have it. Now, right off the bat, I remember when Nikon came out with this camera, I was like, it's so pretty, right? Because it just gives you all the aesthetics of the older generation type film cameras. But it's completely digital. Now it's a lot less weight because it's not full metal construction. But once again, it's like an adult fidget spinner. When it comes to the top end of this is giving you a pro level look into the same things that you would have on these types of cameras, but in the digital form. But it works the same way. So right here you have your shutter speed. It's pointed to the inside, so let me see if I can highlight that. You can see the little marker on the inside there. So as you can see, I still have this one at 1/25th of a second, which is to do exactly the same thing. When I'm trying to take photos of Aiden, well, he moves around, he like vibrates at a different frequency, so you have to actually get a faster shutter speed to get some sharp photos. To the left we have control over our ISO, right, which would be our ASA or the film speed, but I have it set to 6400 off to the side, and that's basically where I have it set to its maximum. I don't want the exposure to go past that, or the ISO to go past that, so I pretty much set it off to the side. Just underneath it, right, we have our different modes, which is selected by the knob underneath it, from manual to aperture priority, shutter priority, program, and full auto. So this is all available in this camera. Of course, I'm gonna have it set to manual. And on the right side, we have another functionality, which is the difference between photography and video. So one little flick of this switch here, and we've put the camera now in video mode, which is really impressive because it's more designed for photography, but it does do 4K. One bad thing, or the negative to this camera, which is it's photocentric, not video centric. So for whatever reason, Nikon, and I'm gonna go to my front shot over here, for whatever reason, Nikon, they gave it the 2959 limit. So this camera cannot just record indefinitely, like the majority of all hybrid cameras can do in today's day and age. There's really no, European limitation to the cameras, because before they would be taxed more if they had this, if they could record longer than this time, because it would be considered a cinema camera instead of a photography camera, adding a like unwanted tax. That's why for the longest time we had the 2959 limitation, meaning it won't record a video file past that time. But they put it on this camera, even though that's not a limitation anymore, for whatever reason. I don't know, I guess to keep it photocentric instead of video centric, right? Because it's producing a really good image. It's an APS-C sensor, but it's got a 20.9. It gives you a 20.7 output megapixel off this APS-C sensor, and it's just been a lot of fun to tinker with. As you can see, like I was saying, kind of like an adult fidget spinner. But going back to the overhead, right on this side you have your exposure compensation dial. Right here you also have your f-stop functionality. So if I were to turn that on, right, and I would open up the lens, hopefully would be, let me see if I could show you, because it's like calculator LCD. I think right there we can see it if I can get the shading just right. Yeah, you see it's a digital output. It says 3.5, and as I zoom in, it changes 4.5, 5, all the way to 6.3 at its furthest most zoom feature on this lens. But it does give you your aperture off to the side, which is pretty neat, meaning like you can find your aperture without having to look at the digital screen by having this little teeny tiny LCD here, which is pretty convenient, especially when you're rocking it like I am here, with the LCD on the closed back, so that you're not really looking and checking your photos after each shot. You're using it like a photography camera, and then you can check your photos after the fact, as if you were to, needed to go to the drugstore like I had to do back in the day to get those, photos exposed. But just to finish off, we have the record button for video once you're in video mode. So you'd be able to utilize that. And then we come towards the back, which, like I was just mentioning, we have our LCD flip out screen here, but I have it folded in for two reasons. Like I said, to give me that aesthetic and that feel of just like shooting for shooting's sake, so to speak, just for the fun of it, right? And checking the photos to see which ones actually came out good after the fact. But when you do flip it open, right, you're greeted with this nice, I think it's a 3.2 inch touch LCD. Now, right here, I'm going to show you, as you can see on the upper right hand corner, the dreaded 2959. See it right there? Why'd they do it? Why? Because if not, this camera I think would have gotten a lot more love. Now, I digress. Flipping the screen over, right, we have access to everything. But if you know these digital cameras, messing in these digital streets, you know that these the LCD is what's going to consume the most of your battery. So to avoid that, we have a couple of options that are changed and modified by the button right next to the viewfinder right there. So if we were to click it once, we would go into automatic display switch, as you can see there. Oh, I was in video mode, that's why. Okay, that's cool. I'm gonna switch it back into photography mode, right? And that goes that right now it's an automatic switch, meaning we're showing the LCD, but if we were to get close enough to the viewfinder, you can see that it switched over automatically, and it turns the LCD off and then switches back. But this is the whole thing. This LCD is consuming the most amount of battery. So we switch over to the next feature, which is viewfinder only. Meaning as soon as you were to put your eye up there, right, you would get the viewfinder to click on. And if it's off, then they're both off, and it helps conserve battery. But this is the whole thing. If I were to hit menu, the menu would only be displayed on the inside LCD, including if I wanted to check a photo, the playback would only be inside, inside the viewfinder's LCD, right? And not on the LCD. So we click the next option, which is saying monitor only, and that's letting us see that the photos that are here, right, or basically anything that we want to do, whether we're checking photographs or if we're in the menu system itself. Now we have the LCD being predominantly on. Wow, I was about to, well, I did struggle with that word, but I got it out. And now if I were to hit the viewfinder sensor, it will never turn it on because it's now set to the LCD on the back, which I don't recommend. And then we get this amazing, super cool feature, which is the next option, which is called prioritize viewfinder. Now the prioritize viewfinder, what that does is that if you are using the camera, like just have it around your neck, you can leave it on and everything is off, so it's not consuming that much power on your battery. But if you were to go to the viewfinder, it will activate the viewfinder, as you can see there. So once the viewfinder is activated, then at that moment you have the ability, right, like you can take your photographs, but it basically keeps it as if you had the viewfinder priority on only until you want to revise your photos. So when you go to revise a photograph, right, that you have taken before, oh, the exposure on it is like super high, right? Or you're gonna go into the menu systems. In the camera, it now uses the LCD, but it's still prioritizing the viewfinder. And as soon as you get out of this mode, it once again shuts off the LCD to save as much or conserve as much battery as you possibly can, giving you the most amount of photography shots as possible. That's why I said this is really set up for photography in that way. And that's a really cool feature, because the only other camera that had anything similar to this, right, at all, is my Fuji camera. Now let's go back to this. I got it right over here. And my Fuji camera, my Fuji X-T1, right, has a viewfinder mode button right there on the side. So let me go back to my overhead. So now we're on my Fuji, right? And you can see it says viewfinder mode right there. And it basically does the same exact thing. The one thing that it doesn't do is that it doesn't have that menu prioritization mode on it. It does have where it just waits for you to sense and shuts off the LCD for that reason. But if you were to go to check one of the pictures or need to go into the menu, you would need to change it to get action on the LCD in the background before you have the ability to see anything, unless you have your eye on the viewfinder. But I also bring up this camera because this is kind of like my new age or up-to-date digitally vintage replica camera, right? As you can see, they have very similar looks. And I'm not gonna lie, this Nikon is taking a lot of real estate, right, that I would normally be using this Fuji camera for. So right now it's just been, you know, like a week, and this is usually my take photos of Aiden camera, and I basically just kind of swapped them out because it was giving me all the right feels. As you can see, Fuji camera as well is an adult fidget spinner that gives you all the knobs and all the dials to your, you know, so that you can mess around at your heart's content. But this Fuji camera is doing all the same, but plus is just, it just looks so nice. I don't know if you agree. It is so pretty, right? And even though I like all black cameras, the black and silver colorway here is really giving me all the vintage vibes compared to like my Maya. So now, what what is the next obvious step for me to do with this camera? Well, get some accessories for it. So a couple of the accessories that I need, well, that I went to get right away. Let me go ahead, and I'm gonna come right here to let you know that I need a break because Mr. Aiden is asking me for some snacks. All right. So let me go ahead and take care of him. Here you go.
Now he's a happy camper. All right. So now going back to it. So next thing is to accessorize, right? So got my hands on this camera and right away I hopped on Amazon and just started to pick up a couple of things that I knew that I wanted right away for this camera. Now, this little kit lens is pretty cool and I like it. It's very convenient. Um, but I'm a vintage guy, so I wanted to be able to use my vintage lenses. So right away, the first thing I did was I picked up, let me see if I can, yeah, screw it here. Is an M42 adapter. Now, M42 is a screw mount at 42 millimeters. This is how these older cameras used to mount their interchangeable lenses. So now we have what's called oh, I forgot what's the name of the locking system that we use now on most cameras, right? But prior to these locking systems with a button release, right? Man, I'm running a blank on the term, but like this old Mamiya, to remove the lens, you would actually have to twist it off. And after a few spins, you would have access to the internals, right? The mirror. But most importantly, you had, the ability to change lenses. So this is my Mamiya C-Core 55 millimeter f1.4. Now, f1.4 is a great low light lens. Now, the kit lens only comes to 3.5 at its widest aperture. So right away, I'm able to take this lens off of my vintage Mamiya camera and screw it right on to this lens mount. And now I have the ability to throw that lens right onto this camera. Now these dummy adapters for M42, these are like the most inexpensive thing. I think they're like between $10 to $12 on Amazon, and it got here the next day. And now, as you can see, you have a vintage looking camera with an even older lens. And it's amazing because you're getting all the quality of that glass onto the new digital formats, which is why I love mirrorless cameras. But this one, as you can see, has just that little bit of that extra je ne sais quoi, the little fairy dust, how Doc says, right? Because now you have the feel of the metal lens, but a lot more capability, including, once again, the ability to shoot video with these vintage lenses. So it's like the best of both worlds. It gives me all the feels. It's just hitting all the right spots. So another thing that I do with most of my cameras, especially photography based ones, is that I add an extended hood here, or like eye cup, not hood, but an eye cup. So I go ahead and look for those, and that's also, once again, like between $10 to like $15, and that's exactly what I did. So there wasn't one particular that I found for this camera, right? Because it has the traditional round one. But I was able to find one similar to it. You can see I did have to, by like full disclosure, I did have to modify the bottom of this eye cup because it wasn't fitting exactly, even though it had like the appropriate dimensions from what I had checked online. But now that I did that, I'm able to throw this on here and get that extra, like, old school feel. So now I have my eye cup and my vintage lens on here, and it just keeps getting better and better, right? So now that I'm getting, like, I'm tweaking it out, I it also came with this handle. So this is something that I didn't have to pick up right away, but it did come with this small rig handle, which, as you can see, is just gonna add that extra bit of juiciness to the camera. So slowly but surely, look at that. And now with the little extended grip right here, this is gonna be amazing. So let me go ahead and throw that on there. Okay. Take a look at that. Let me know what you think about the look, right? I wish I can tell you about the feel, because this right here just feels money. And one of the things that I do is that I make sure that the LCD is flipped on the inside, because my thumb naturally just rocks there, and that's how I like hold these styles of cameras. So just to give you that, and maybe an overhead look, right, of where my thumb sits. It's away from all the buttons, but it just gives me even that much of a better grip on this. Right, this is my other lens. This is the one that I was actually messing around with. This is my Helios M44, or no, my Helios 44 Mark IV 58mm f2. So vintage lens, Russian, that thing's older than I am. But once again, I'm able to throw it on today's technology with a simple adapter. And oh man, this, like I said, this is just amazing. And to give you a bit of a story, as I was testing this out just this week, right, I had the, just the basic kit lens on there. And the only other thing that I had done was I had put my little like Peak Design little clip to it. So I had my strap over my shoulder and the camera was just hanging down there. And I went to visit my father at the hospital. Actually, that was just something that I wanted to talk to everyone about as well. He's doing better. He's home. There wasn't an emergency surgery needed, but there is going to be a surgery needed that we're, so that's just the next step. But I want to thank everyone for the thoughts and prayers, and for the continued thoughts and prayers as we move forward. So thank you, everyone. It was a rough week, but he's home now. But as I was at the hospital, going back to it, I had this over my shoulder, and the nurse that was there helping out started asking me about photography and camera and everything like that. I've carried a variety of cameras around my shoulder a lot of times in a lot of different places, and the amount of attention that this camera gets from just hanging on my shoulder and people wanting to ask about it just in like within a week is pretty impressive. And that's exactly what I'm trying to convey with this. Like, it gives that element of feeling like it looks like I'm doing film photography. So it's just different. That's the best way that I could put it. It's just different, and this little camera is hitting all the spots right now. I'm really excited for it. Like, the only negative that I have about this camera is that it has that 2959. Like, it has that pretty bogus, limitation on the video, but You can connect it as a webcam via USB-C, and it's actually been doing pretty well. It hasn't had any overheating issues, because I think that even though it's an APS-C size body, uh, because they kept it a particular size, which is not too small, right? I think it has enough space to dissipate the heat. So connecting it as a USB-C camera and using it as a webcam is a possibility. Um, I think maximum is 1080 that you're getting out of it, but it might not be a full 30 frames per second. I think it's in the 24 frames a second as a webcam variety. So still looking into that, messing around with it. But besides that, hey, this little thing is it's finding its way into the rotation a lot faster than what I thought. So let me know your thoughts. If you have any questions whatsoever, leave them in the chat. I'm going to go through them right now. Please put a Q colon in front of any questions that you might have, and I'll be happy to answer them the best that I can. Now, if you're here right now and you're listening to this, please hit the like button. It's been, I always forget to do this, and we were talking about that. So if you haven't done so already, please be sure to hit that like button. It's highly appreciated. And now back to the chat. Let's see where we left it. All right. Okay. We got Jeremy in the house saying happy Saturday. There we are. That's coming up. It just says a Yashica. The camera I had in high school was a Yashica rangefinder. Oh, I wish I still had it. Oh, rangefinders, especially from back in the day, those are a lot of fun to find. Hey, Nano's in the house. Tech for your needs, saying hello there. Oh, Gretchen just said that she just ordered her hoodie. Oh, thank you. I'm glad that you liked it. That is the new secret hoodie. I am polycameras hoodie. It's a new design, but right now it's for members only, which is a good thing. That if you're wanting to support me and the channel, you can go to the Fourth Wall site, which is in the description down below. Man, I'm drying up real hard right now. But the Fourth Wall link is down below in the description. There you can find the merch that's available to the public, but you could also become a member and then have availability to personalized merch, like the one that I just made for Gretchen. So she liked the design, but she wanted it on a different garment. So I was able to go in there and make a design specifically for her and send her a personalized link. And those are the things that I do for my members, that I just try to go above and beyond, because they've already gone above and beyond for me. So if you're interested in becoming a member of yours truly, be sure to hit the link down below and link yourself up through the Fourth Wall, because that's where I have my membership set up. Nano says yes, it looks vintage, dude. So vintage. And you know what? you know what? Let's check this out right now, because what I've noticed is that there's similarities to the camera, but at the end of the day, it ends up being longer. So here, I'm going to show you in just a second. I'm going to go back to the overhead. Let's continue with the chat. Thank you. And for all the well wishes. Yes, Mr. Moderator put the Q colon like that. That helps me. And yeah, and don't forget to hit the like button. See, fits there. All right, there we go. All right, so now I'm gonna go back to the overhead, and this is what I mean. Let me get this keyboard out of the way. Okay, so yeah. So if I were to take this lens and mount off, right? we look at the cameras and they're not too far off, right? The bodies are pretty much the same width. Now, we have a bit of a hump here on the top side, right? Which is giving the space between the flange and the film itself, where it would sit behind on the back of the camera, right? So if I were to take a shot here, you know what? I'm going to put it on bulb so that I can hold it open, right? And now when I come over here and let me see if I can get any light in there, and I hold it open, right? That's where the film would be living, even though we can't really see. See if I can bring the light over here. Oh. Not showing anything. It's not. It's so dark back there, you can't see anything. I was trying to show some type of reflection, but I digress. Anyways, the difference, right? That this is the entire length, right? Like this is from front to back, the entirety of the camera, right? So that there we have it. So that means that right here, we press this lens up against it, right? And that is on the flange. We screw it in, and let me see. Where's my tape measure? Oh, no. That's not pressing. Okay, I can't find my tape measure, so I'm pulling out my caliper. Okay. So basically, front to back, right? We are roughly at, wow, about 100 millimeters. Right? And did I do that? Okay, perfect. So we're roughly at 100.2 millimeters. Okay. Actually 0.22 to get, on the micron scale, so to speak. So 100 millimeters right off rip. Okay, perfect. So now that's how long this camera is overall. So I'm going to go ahead so that we have the same exact lens. I could already tell. See that even. Look at that. That is the 100 millimeters of the other camera with the lens on there. So we're adding an extra. What looks to be another 14 millimeters, which I could kind of double check here. Yeah, like 13 to 14 millimeters extra. So because there's so much electronics in here now, right, that the sensor, which would represent the film, sits a lot closer than the film used to sit towards the back of the cameras. So for that reason, to get the appropriate flange distance between the lens or the vintage lens and the sensor, so it could mimic all the electronics, ends up making the lens push out even more. So even though it looks and feels good, this one was still more like balanced, especially with the body being heavier. So as you can see, it's like rocking forward, it's front heavy, but when you have it on your shoulder, it feels just fine. But yeah, look at that. Pretty big difference, 14 millimeters. That's it's more than half an inch. So there we go. All right, let me see if you guys do have any questions here. Doesn't look like it. All right, let me go back to it. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's any questions about this camera. 20.7 megapixels. Let me see. Does 4K 30, 1080, 120, 60, and everything underneath that or corresponding to it. There's a couple of cool features, like once again, go back to my overhead, right? This eye intelligent menu, right? You click it and it's basically like the function menu. So you have the ability to quickly change, like your autofocus, your white balance, metering, just pretty much everything that you need for the basic functionality of the camera. So this menu is pretty intuitive. When you go to the menu, Nikon needs to step up their game, because this menu is just like, if everyone that complains about Sony menus, I'm like, really? Have you dabbled in Nikon? Because bro. And this is the crazy thing, like it's not continuous. So once you get to the end of a category, it resets you to the top, having you have to go back to the left and switch into the appropriate, or to the next settings category, if it is that what you're looking for wasn't in the previous one. So not the best, but once again, not bad, because the camera and this intelligent menu, the eye menu, is pretty functional. That makes things pretty easy. Yeah, but once again, this camera just gives you all the good feels, and that's something that's very important. Like, if a camera inspires you to go shoot, to go create content with it, that might be a much better camera than just one that might technically look better but doesn't inspire you to get anything done. Now, one camera that I absolutely have been enjoying the hell out of and using all the time is this bad boy right here, the FX30. This thing has just been a joy and a pleasure to have and to use. From autofocus, 10-bit color, log footage, everything that I've been able to do with this camera has just been exemplary. But there's another camera that's trying to fit in a similar type category, which is the one that I'm talking about next week, which is the Nikon Z30. Now, I have it right over here, and running some tests on this little guy right here. As you can see, no viewfinder, flip out, articulating LCD, video centric little camera, because it doesn't have this dreaded 2959 video limitation. But that's not where its limitations lie, and I still have a little bit more testing to do. But most likely next Saturday, I'll be talking about this, either if it's like too hot to handle, or if I found a way to handle its one little like draw or negative, so to speak. This one being the 2959, that one being a little bit of a case of overheating. But once again, I'm going to put it through some more tests, and I'll come with my conclusions next week on the Nikon Z30. So stay tuned for that. If you're not subscribed, this will be the time for you to do so. You understand? So that you don't miss next week's, episode and my findings on the Nikon Z30. Okay, let me go ahead once again to see if there were any questions. No, it doesn't look like it. It looks like we're just hanging out, having a good time. So with that, I'm gonna go into the next step. Oh, let's move this back. We're causing some serious flaring. All right, put that back. Let me clear some things over here. Put some cameras back together. Okay, we're good. Put my caliper back up top and hit this little button. Cities God, channels that I think you should go and watch. All right. And this week we have another Sony shooter. Oh, hold on. We gotta change the scene first, Luis. Boop. All right. And it's none other than Mr. James Matthews. Now, if you've never heard of this man, let me be the one to introduce you to this content creator. He's a Sony cinematographer, Sony shooter, right? I might get this wrong. I believe it's from Ireland, but you know he's definitely got an accent. So just be warned. But he actually came out with this video the other day. This one right here, where it says Sony cameras just got better, and it's about a free Sony app. So that's why I guess I have Mr. James Matthew fresh on the brain, because I really wanted to look into that. But as you can see, he dabbles into, you know, like voiceover, best film investments for creatives. There's quite a few different videos that he's created. As you can see, he dabbles in a lot of the same things as I do when it comes to audio, video, you know, like the gear, the computers, gimbals. He's big on gimbals. You know my touch on them. I'd rather go handheld than use a gimbal, but to each his own. I'm gonna probably be picking up an iPhone gimbal, but that's a whole different, you know, situation, because that's just for convenience. But as you can see, he's done FX30 reviews. He's done, you know, a variety of different drone cameras. So if you haven't heard of this creator, Mr. James Matthews, let me be the first to introduce you to him. And that's this week's Cities Gaw, channels that I think you should go and watch. And there we have it. Boom. All right, guys. Now, Aiden's pulling on me. Let me grab. Let me get this guy over here. Oh, yeah, you're in the show, buddy. You're in the show. You look like you have a mischievous plan in mind. But you can say hi to everybody. All right. All right, and let me press this button over here. There we go. Boom. We need to cut your hair. We definitely do. Oh, come on. Give me a hug. Come on. Just... What are you looking at? All right, everyone. As you can see, I have fatherly duties to get to. This guy is asking more and more of my time and attention. But as always, I want to thank every single one of you. Hey. Put you down. Because you're not gonna... But we did it, guys. This was episode 195, which is another thing that things are just creeping up on us. We're just 5 weeks away from episode 200 right here on the Camera Junkie YouTube channel. So once again, if this was your first time and you don't know what I'm talking about, this was episode 195. So that means that's 195 consecutive weeks of the Camera Junkie live stream without skipping a beat. We do it every single week, and I want to thank every single one of you who makes this the place that I want to be, hands down. So if you haven't done so, please be sure to mark it down on the calendar, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on the Camera Junkie YouTube channel for episode 196 and beyond. So next week will be 196, and then we'll just be a month away from episode 200, which is such a huge milestone. And then just, you know, 8 episodes away, just 2 more months away from episode 208, which will make consecutive, or 4 years consecutive, of the Camera Junkie live stream, which is just crazy because the time has just flown by. So 2 milestones just above the horizon, and another one that's creeping up right there is the 2,000 subscriber mark. So if I were to check right now, which I don't have that window open, we're gonna do it live. Let me see here. Going to my YouTube studio. Drum roll. We're at 1946 currently subscribers. So we're just 54 subscribers away from that milestone, just the same. So if you haven't done so already, this will be the perfect time to subscribe so that you do not miss out on these milestones coming up and you get to enjoy and all the fun. So we did it. This was episode 195. And yeah, I think I'm not missing anything. I did squeeze in there about my father, but I did want to mention that as a bit of house cleaning. I do want to thank all of you for all the well wishes. He's home. He's feeling better. There's still, a surgery pending, and we'll see what happens when we get to that road or that fork in the road. And but as always, I want to thank y'all for making this the best part of my every week. So take care of yourselves and each other. And I can't wait to see all of your smiling faces as we do it all over again next week, right here, same time, same place. Talk to you. Finish with the music right there.